and welcome. Today I have Melanie Smith with me. Hey, Melanie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Love the last name. We've always had that in common,
Yes.
which is good.
Very relatable.
Yeah, relatable, but full disclaimer, not related. So
That's
there you
right.
go. There's too many of us in the world. But it's great to have you here. And I guess I'm really excited to dive a little bit more into your business journey and, some of the work that we've done together, but also around the work that you do and who you're helping, because you are making a really big impact with leaders out there in the world. So we want to talk a little bit about that. For people that are just brand new to you and coming across you for the first time, can you just share a little bit around who you are and who you help?
So I am a career and leadership coach. I founded Metanoia Consulting Services a little while ago. I help mid-level leaders to progress their careers through to senior leadership, and I help them to do it a little bit faster than they would if they were doing it by themselves.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And in terms of the leaders and people that you work with, what sort of got you passionate about the type of leaders that you work with? Was there a particular, I guess, sometimes we have moments in our career where we were once our clients or other different scenarios. So I just wonder for you, like, how did you kind of fall into the space that you're in working with leaders in their careers?
Yeah, so it is a bit twofold for me. The first one was I have been a mid-level leader myself, and I have made that transition into senior leadership. But also I have a people and culture background. So I came from owning the talent function, working with high potential talent to help them to accelerate their careers. I have a strong understanding of what executive leadership looks like, how effective executive leaders work. And for me, I have this little bit of I call it my ninja purpose, which is really around helping mid-level leaders to progress so that when they do get to executive roles, they are actually a bit more sustainable in their leadership style for themselves, but that they also create great environments for wherever it is that they choose to go. And I think the last thing is, the thing that really made me very passionate about working with mid-level leaders was the fact that they are usually the least invested in the organisation. And in my mind, they're kind of the meat in the sandwich. They have the toughest job. So all of those things together made it a bit of a no-brainer for me to be working with mid-level leaders.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, it's great when you've kind of been in that role because you understand it from all the different angles of what goes on a day to day and, across different industries and managing different teams and things as well. To have that perspective, I think is really helpful when you're working with people at that same level, which is great. And you've got your HR background as well. So tell me a little bit around your career and how things sort of got going in your career and when you kind of hit your stride, I guess, in your career and you were feeling really good about things. And then what made you want to make the shift into your own business? How did that come about for you?
Yeah, okay. So my career journey was one of those where I really didn't have a plan. When I finished high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had some help in working out how to get onto the path of, working in people and culture. And I think for me, it did take me a little while to hit my stride. I was the first child in my family who had actually worked in a corporate role. So I didn't have a good example of what success looked like in that space. So it took a bit of time.
Yeah.
I think it was around the middle of my career where I did really hit my stride, where I built my confidence to step out into different disciplines within the people and culture space and get that really broad experience across the function as well as across industries. So I have very fond memories of being in that mid-level space where I felt that I really built my capability and I was able to be most effective. But for a very long time, probably from the time I was in that mid-level space, I really wanted to become a coach. It was a passion of mine for about 10 years before I actually... That is a long time.
Long time.
And I took opportunities that gave me exposure to coaching or opportunity to develop people. I really felt this satisfaction from being the person behind the scenes that just helped a little bit on people's journeys with getting them to where they wanted to go.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to leave the people and culture space a bit over a year ago now, and that was kind of the catalyst for me to go, it's now or never. I need to jump in and do this or I'm going to be stuck in corporate forever.
Yeah.
And as much as I loved it, I really just wanted to do the thing that I'm most passionate about.
Yeah. What was that decision like for you? Was it an easy one? Did you kind of go back and forth for a little while in terms of, you've been thinking about the coaching for so long, but then to go out in your own coaching business, like what was that decision like for you? I guess rather than working as a coach for someone else, like what made you want to do it on your own?
I wanted control of my life and my calendar and all of those good things, which was always an underpinning thing for me. I wanted to control my own destiny. But the decision itself, I'm a little bit of an odd character in that once I've made a decision, I just go for it. So I had just come back from being overseas. I was kind of in between jobs and I was like, should I look for another job? Should I not?
Yep.
And I was kind of thinking about maybe it's a side hustle and I do the coaching thing on the side. And I was literally having this little conversation with myself and I couldn't reconcile how I could do both of those things well. So it was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember very distinctly. I just called my partner and I said to him, look, I think if I'm going to do this coaching thing, I just need to be all in.
Yep.
Or just not even bother. And he said to me, yeah, cool. Okay. So literally reactivated my ABN that afternoon, got a business name, put it out on LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, I'm live.
Brilliant.
And then I sat back and I was like, I don't know what to do now, but I'm a business.
Yep. Perfect. So you had the ABN, you were like, out there and was like, yep, this is what I'm doing. And then what kind of happened from there? I guess when you're in that period of time where you'd made that decision and you're all in, and I think Tony Robbins talks about like burn the boats and just not leave any sort of thing behind, and so that feels like the approach you took, which is great. And so when you kind of made that decision, you had the support from your partner, which is awesome, and then you kind of sat there and thought, okay, well, I've done the things that I know in terms of I've got my ABN, feels like I've got a business, but we need clients. What was that journey for you? And was there anything that you found challenging in the early days when you were starting things off?
Everything was challenging in the early days. I'm not going to lie. I knew nothing about running a business. And, I just intuitively went to, okay, let me map my stakeholders and my network and start to think about who are the people that would advocate for me, who are the people that would, that I need to reconnect with, and who are the people that are aspirational. And after I'd done that activity, which took me, half a day, I was then like, okay, I still don't know what to do. And so I knew very early on that I needed support. And you were running your kind of 5-day learning around kind of how do you make your service-based coaching business really get off the ground. And I'd connected in with you quite a while ago, and I'd been to some of the workshops that you run, and I kind of knew, okay, I need some support in setting this thing up. And I didn't want to wait and make mistakes and burn time and money. So within 2 weeks of launching my business with no preparation, I signed up with you because I knew that I needed marketing strategies. And I remember very distinctly saying to you, do you help with like sales processes and how to do things? You're like, yes, we've got you covered. So that for me was really quite fundamental to the successes that I've seen in my business now. I would not be here if I hadn't have made that very quick decision to get some help very early on.
Yeah, I love that, because I think there's many different ways you can go about things, right? And there's no one way, and I'm pretty biased being a coach and helping people in their businesses that, I'm of the opinion that investing for speed is absolutely key. And like you said, just avoiding the mistakes, not burning time and money, it just makes such a big difference on the back end. And I think when you're in it or in the early days, sometimes you feel like you've got all the time in the world to figure things out. And it's not until 3 or 4 years down the track, or even 6 months or a year down the track, or whatever that looks like, that you're kind of in that position where you're like, oh, I've tried a few things and nothing's really worked. And you're kind of facing that decision of having to go and get a job again and feeling like a bit of a failure when you could have avoided all of that, from the start. So I love that you were just all in. And I do remember that conversation with you, Mel, and you were like, yep, I've done this. I'm like, okay, great. I could see that you were driven. I could see that you've taken some action on your own. And then it was like, okay, let's just get this thing going. And that's what we did. So tell me a little bit about some of the things that you implemented that were really key for you in getting your first clients and then starting to grow the business from there. Because you mentioned around the marketing, around the sales. What were the missing pieces for you, and how can we work together? What were the things that made a big impact for you?
Yeah. Well, the missing pieces for me were coming out of corporate and having whole functions around me who could help me do these things.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm the finance person, the marketing person, the communications person. So right away, the things that helped me straight off the bat were thinking about LinkedIn as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I want to step back because the first thing was mindset. And going through your program, spending that time up front to kind of go, what is the mindset that you need and what are the things that could get in the way? It really helped me to unpack the mindset pieces so that some of that didn't become an issue where I think it probably would have had I not done that work.
Yeah.
But thinking about LinkedIn as a tool and how do I actually find the people that would be my ideal client, working on a positioning statement up front so that when I did find an ideal client or had built my understanding of who my ideal client was, I understood what it was that I was going to do for them. What is my purpose for engaging with these people? The whole LinkedIn connection process was critical to me. And I would have to say that I think one of the things that's really underpinned the success I've had to date is utilizing that process and being really consistent about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the content planning. So lots of discussion, particularly in group coaching, about what is it that I need to say? Who am I talking to? But having a content plan there with prompts on where to focus your content through the week and how to make that work for you. All of those pieces were fundamental foundations to the building of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I remember when things started to really click into place pretty early for you and you landed your first client. So you mentioned mindset a little bit there as well. So tell me about what belief did that then shift for you once you'd kind of gotten over a couple of these hurdles, you started consistently implementing trainings and you landed your first client. Like, what was that moment like for you?
Really exciting and a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Because it was like, woohoo, someone wants to work with me. And then I was like, oh, someone wants to work with me. So I think landing the client was the first hurdle. And it took me a little while to find my groove on that. I had a few false starts in terms of getting through the sales funnel and kind of selling my services. And a lot of that came down to, I'm confident, a lot of that came down to my lack of confidence in having a sales conversation. And so getting through that first client then set me up. A win builds confidence and then you get another win and it builds confidence and it grows and builds momentum. So I think for me, that first client was pivotal, but I also took a lot of learnings from those first clients and some of those experiences in terms of service that I provided. And I think my biggest lessons came from the clients that I didn't win, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Yeah. Tell me more about that. What did that do for you?
Well, I think when people first start saying no, it can feel really deflating because you're feeling like they're saying no to you, like it's a personal thing, like they don't like me or they don't see the value I could add. And then one day I had a client say no and I had the courage to say to them, I'd love to explore why it was a no, because we went through the sales conversation and it felt like it was a yes and now it's a no. And I had the courage to ask, and then I sat down with the person who gave me a huge amount of information about his experience of me in that process. And that helped me to understand that not everybody should be a yes. And I feel that over the last 12 months, the biggest learning I've had in myself is, I remember some of those early no's really feeling like a punch in the stomach, right? It hurt. Whereas now, if I hear a no and it's fast, I'm like, cool, let's move on.
Great. You're like, I've just saved a lot of time.
And I'm not even dwelling on it. I'm like, that's cool, that's fine. And also, I think the beauty of time is seeing where people have said no, but then come back. So recognizing that a no is not always a permanent no, we're gone and forgotten, and that importance of continuing to connect and build relationship and demonstrate value over time. We'll see people who might be a no now become a yes later.
Absolutely. And I think it's also, and what you've done really well is just have that long-term vision of the business as well. Like you're acting in the short term and, doing that ferociously because we need to do that to build the momentum, but also knowing that, you are building pipeline. And so like you said, a no can just mean I'm not ready right now, but it's not a no
Yeah.
forever. And so, when you're building those relationships and those connections and you've got that happening consistently, it just compounds and it just accelerates over time. And so then you kind of hit this tipping point in the business where, instead of pushing a boulder sort of up the hill is like my first analogy to get things going, you're kind of chasing after it down the other side. And that's where you want to get to, where you've got, a wait list of clients ready to work with you, which is awesome. And I think, that sales piece is a huge shift for lots of people, especially when you haven't had to sell before, or even for people that have had to sell but in corporate in a different context. It's very different when you're selling for a big brand. You've got all the credibility, you just say the brand name and people kind of instantly trust you. And then you go out on your own and you're like, work with me. It feels a little bit different. So, it's really normal to have had that experience. And I love that you've moved through that and you're out the other side. It's great to see.
I think there's a piece around the sales component where it's around rethinking that sales piece, because I've had it reflected to me multiple times over the last 12 months or so that, well, you were a salesperson, but you weren't selling a product, you were selling ideas, or you were influencing outcomes, or you were selling projects or whatever else. So when you actually kind of break it down and you can twist it a little in your brain to go, well, what was my sales role before? Let's take the word sales out of it. And I have skills that are there. How do I utilize those skills? That reframe I found really helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you moved through that, you got through some mindset blockers and you knew sort of what's coming, so you knew what to expect and you can jump over those hurdles a lot quicker. You had your sales process down packed. You love hearing a no now because it just means you save time and you can identify exactly who you want to work with and who you don't, because not all clients are created equal. So you get to pick and choose, who you want to work with, which is great. What other sort of impacts and results have you had now that the business has been growing? You've been working, with quite a few clients and you're, really kind of growing and scaling. Can you give some context around like, what did it look like from 0 to now in terms of the business growth and how that happened for you?
Yeah, so I started with $0 coming in. I was a non-existent, so I know that some people have, side hustles and they have some income and some brand in the market already. I had none of that. I had 20 years of corporate experience and I felt like I was starting brand new with a clean slate and nothing. Whereas in the last 2 months, I've almost doubled what I was earning in corporate. And it took a while to get there, but now I'm finding that I've gone from being worried about finding clients to now I'm quite busy and I'm trying to get all the work done. So I have a different problem to face, which is good. It's a good problem to have. And I'm starting to look at external, supports that will help me to be able to manage that most effectively. So it's been kind of, beginning of the journey was like, do we want to buy that coffee out or do we want to make it at home? And now it's kind of like, let's go out for breakfast, let's go out for dinner, let's do the things. I feel like we've done the hard yards in the family context of getting the business off the ground and really being very focused from a financial perspective to now we're starting to enjoy fruits of our labour or my labour, our labour. My family have to put up with me.
Well, it's a team effort, right? You've got yourself, running the business. As you said, your partner was supportive from the start, which makes such a difference, and that's really, I think, nice because often we're in business naturally for ourselves, but not necessarily. We've got other people that surround us, kids, family, whatever it is, that we've always got like some other factor that tends to drive us a little bit as well, especially on the hard days. You're like, okay, this is what I'm doing it for. So I love that. You should be out having breakfast, doing all the things with the family and the kids and enjoying your time, which is really cool. And I guess just for context, in terms of your corporate role, like you were at director level in people and culture. So we're not talking about not an easy hike in taking sure that you're matching your salary. It's like, I think for many people, just meeting your salary and replacing that in your business is the first step and a really good goal to have. But love that you pretty much doubled it, which is great. Really good.
Yes. And it did feel for a little bit of time that maybe I wouldn't, I don't know if I'm ever going to get there. It felt like a very hard slog. But looking back, I can now see that what I was doing was laying foundations. Exactly. And there's often that period of growth where you just hit this tipping point and like you said, things just really start to snowball. You're now dealing with other problems in the business, which is like, okay, got lots of clients. How do I, leverage and kind of scale from here, which is awesome. And it's a good problem to be solving. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And how have your family kind of reacted to, I guess, the difference in how you work now compared to life in corporate as well, in terms of that family, the flexibility that you first went after, and your decision to leave corporate. How does that feel, or how is that different for you now?
Oh, it's so different. So I'm not going to lie, I still work hard.
Yeah, of course.
I don't do the same kind of hours that I did when I was in corporate. I worked
Yep.
extraordinarily long hours in corporate, and there was always someone else's pressure on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Whereas working for myself, like this morning, I took a couple of hours and had coffee with a friend I hadn't seen for a long time, and I just built it into my calendar and I went off and I did it because I know that I'll get everything else done. So being able to build in the things that are important to me into my life, being able to attend school events without having to explain myself to someone, or try to manage meetings or be on the phone while I'm there. Like it's things like that that are really important to me.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, even though I work hard, I don't feel the same level of stress. I talk to people about this all the time. When you're in a senior people and culture role, your life is not your own.
Yeah.
It's generally owned by the executive team that you're supporting, and they can be quite demanding. Like, I love them all, but they are demanding. So knowing that I have the ability to work when I want to work at the times that suit me, to take time back. I generally work only about a half day on a Friday, so I have my time and I don't feel guilty about it. It's a really different mindset, and feeling like I am the owner of my own destiny, which when you're in corporate, it didn't feel like that to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love. And what are you most excited about moving forward in the business?
Oh, I think there was a point last year where I realized that, I call myself a coach, but I actually don't need to be defined by titles. And I think this is a mindset shift that came out of being in corporate as well, where, you're a people and culture director, and that means all of these things.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I was like, oh, I can be a coach. I can be an entrepreneur. I can actually be a podcast host if I want to. I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about seeing what's possible. I have plans. I'm quite diligent and structured, so I do have some plans and things that I want to achieve, but I'm just really excited about the ability to be agile, to shift and adjust, to service my clients in the way that I want, to do more corporate work, but also thinking about group coaching and getting some programs off the ground in that space as well. But I just feel for the first time in my life that really there's no boundary around what I can do. The only limit is me.
I'm just like listening to you, and I'm like transported back to our first conversation. I'm like, this is a whole new Mel, and I just love it. And I think, you are a hard worker, but it's about working on the things you actually want to do. And I think that's the big shift and the big difference that you've identified is that, corporate, we're told what to do. In business, we get to decide what we want to do, and we get to create. So, there's lots of freedom in that, which is awesome. So I love that you've had that chance to kind of explore different things and not just feel, kind of siloed and trapped in the one area. It's like, now it's like, okay, what am I interested in? Like, what do I really enjoy? And you can like double down and dive into that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So if you can think back to Mel at the very start of this journey, and I know there'll be people listening to this who are maybe in that position where they've decided that a coaching or consulting or speaking business or whatever that looks like for them is going to happen. They've maybe been thinking about it in corporate for years and years and years, or 10 years like yourself, way too long, but they're just not sure of like the next steps in terms of how to get this thing going. Maybe they've got a couple of clients, but they've come through referrals and they just don't know how to use LinkedIn or how to get things going. Now, of course, we've worked together in the program. So I'd just be curious if, there was someone like that and they're on the fence about getting the support, like it was an obvious choice for you, but naturally people are always thinking about what's the ROI, what's that going to be for me? So what would be your advice to them, like having sort of gone through that full journey, now more than doubling your executive salary in your own business? What's your advice?
Oh, just stop questioning yourself. Honestly, I think that you have to just take the leap. And as you were talking, I was thinking about myself and someone I know who's done out on their own at about the same time as me.
Yeah.
And the clarity that I have in my business and the momentum that I have in my business is very different to that person who hasn't really had that support in kind of finding that direction from the beginning. I think it really starts with that. If you can start at the beginning, start at the beginning with some support, because then you're not going out to market and putting things out there and confusing people around what you do and what your services are and what you're going to deliver. I really had that support to get that part right first and know what I'm there for and understand my purpose first. Because I remember one of the first conversations in the group coaching space was, who do you work with? And I'm like, well, I can work with anyone. I can coach anyone. Like, that's what coaches do. And it was like, but if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. So get the support early, because it'll just exponentially speed up your success in your business. And don't be scared to ask for help, because thinking that we can do it all ourselves is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Humans don't do anything in life by themselves successfully. It just doesn't work. We actually need to work together. So get over whatever's going on in your head. Stop thinking that you need to know it all or have all of the answers, and just start and have some support to put the guardrails around you as you grow.
Yeah. I love that. You mentioned the group coaching there as well. So what have you found that you've really liked about the community?
Oh, so much. That sense of shared knowledge. It can be really lonely going out on your own. And when you're sitting at home by yourself behind a computer, often behind a computer, it can feel that like you're kind of in a bubble, and that sense of community, that kind of outward in thinking that we do as coaches, we do it for other people. So why wouldn't you want that for yourself? I've talked to people from the group coaching who do their office slightly differently to the way that I do it, and, you know, have more experience or are further down the track than I am from a business perspective, and can help me to get some insights on things I've tried or things that didn't work. So you can shortcut things faster or accelerate faster. So I think the group coaching component has been very, very helpful for me in terms of building out my network and just the vibe. Like, everybody advocates for everybody, supports everybody. There's no competition in the group. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing too. Everyone's there to support each other, and everyone wants to see everyone else be successful.
Yeah. We only let the good ones in.
Yeah.
And I guess for anyone, like, there will be leaders that are listening to this as well, Mel, and knowing a little bit more about you now, they're like, maybe I should get some help from Mel in terms of my own career and leadership journey. So where can people go to find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Melanie Smith.
That makes sense.
I run the Accelerated Career Program, but also I have a website, which is metanoiaconsulting.com.au. That's a great place to kind of link in with me as well and see what some of my services are. But LinkedIn is the easiest way to just drop me a DM, start a conversation, and see where things go from there.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks so much for being so open, generous, like with sharing your story and the wins and the lessons and everything as well, because I think it's so useful for others that are listening to this just to know that it is possible for them as well, and that they're certainly not alone. If you've been feeling anything around, you know, where Mel was at, there is light at the end of the tunnel and there is a way to move through it and actually have the business and the life that you want. So thank you so much, Mel, for joining me.
You're welcome. No problem at all. Thank you.